up, y'all? You're listening to the Extra Point College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, week 12 is upon us. Unfortunately, 2 weeks left of the regular season, the greatest regular season of any sport, but we do have a packed slate this week. We are going to be talking about Clemson, Wake Forest, Ohio State, Michigan State, Oklahoma and Iowa State, Alabama, Arkansas, Cincinnati, SMU, Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Utah and Oregon. But Daniel, outside of those games, what is a game that you're excited to watch this week?
For me, it's got to be the Big South championship game.
Ooh.
My Kennesaw State Owls taking on Monmouth. So this game, this has been a big back and forth. Both these teams have combined for the last 4 Big South championships. So something to keep in mind there. Both kind of go above and beyond at this level. Monmouth is standing in the way of my Kennesaw State Owls being the representative in the playoffs. Kennesaw State's number 5 right now in the FCS rankings. So they take care of business. They do what they need to do. They have a pretty favorable setup in the postseason as it stands. So that's at 1:00 on ESPN Plus in Kennesaw State. So expecting a packed house.
K-Saw.
It's at the bank, Fifth Third Bank Stadium.
Bank.
So you already know. So Kennesaw State Monmouth should be a hoot.
Pitt UVA, always a coastal guy, right?
Go Coastal.
Here.
Yeah.
Go Coastal. Pitt Pod even.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing, 14.5 points in a coastal game. I don't care who the teams are. No one should be favored by 14.5. Maybe Pitt because we're a Pitt Pod, but Virginia's got an offense. So, that's a fun game. That one's fun. Also, Michigan, Maryland. I'll just throw a little teaser out there. Our extra point rankings top 4 right now is Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and Michigan in that order. That could be the playoff top 4 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So if Michigan takes care of business. So little teaser there. I know we're picking that game here in a second. 19-point spread, but we will get to it. Let's start at noon. Clemson and Wake Forest. Wake Forest 9-1. 2 games left on their schedule, and here comes Clemson. Clemson 7-3, in my opinion, definitely should be ranked. They passed the good loss test, right? Like all 3 of their losses have come to ranked teams. So Clemson at home, 3.5-point favorite. Any other year, this wouldn't really be of course they're Clemson's favorite, but Wake's the ranked team. Daniel, is this a WTF game? What, wrong team favored?
I think the right team is favored. Clemson definitely has the athletic profile to be there. Wake Forest obviously has been, a surprise this year, to say the least. You and I obviously had them going 4-8 to start the year. We said that was probably going to be wrong because we immediately felt regret after doing it. But someone had to take those losses. We were just wrong. Yeah. But Clemson has somewhat rallied the troops here recently where, it really seems, circled the wagons. We really looked for a little bit like, wow, I don't know if they're going to win enough games to go to a bowl game. I don't know if they're going to score any points. It just seemed like it just is pulling teeth for them to score points. Now, that being said, 3.5, I really like that hook with Wake Forest. We circled the schedule and kind of how Wake Forest looks like they could lose their last 4 games after going 8-0. I do like Clemson to win this game, but give me Wake Forest and their offense Wake Forest has been in these games. They've been winning games, by 3 points, high scoring games. I think this would have to be a high scoring game because I think that Clemson is going to be able to score on Wake Forest's defense. But I think Wake is going to stress Clemson's defense, and Clemson's been a top 10 defense all year. This is going to be one of the best offenses they've seen, one of the most competent, units as a whole on offense. So give me Wake Forest. Give me the 3.5. I like it.
I've really gone back and forth in this game. I've looked at several different models to see what they have this game at score wise. Just 'cause it's always interesting when I'm going back and forth. It's like, all right, let's look at just some cold hard computers. They're cranking these numbers. What's coming out? Like I have models with Wake Forest winning by 2 and 3, and then SP Plus messed me up, man. Bill Conley's SP Plus has Clemson by 12.
Wow.
By 12.
That's a lot.
And he even when he tweeted his SP Plus projections, he put a question mark by that score. Like, what? So all that being said, numbers have been all over the place on this. This is a battle of good on good and bad on bad, right? Clemson's
Perfect.
defense is like number 4 in SP Plus. Like they're a top 5 defense in the country. They've been that way all year. Even now with their injuries, they're still deep. Like they're still Clemson on defense. Again, their overall season record and their offense has distracted everyone from the fact that this is still an elite defense for Clemson. On the other side, Clemson's offense has just been poor. Like they've just been bad. Wake Forest's defense has been bad. We talked about it when we picked the North Carolina Wake game. I said, hey,
right.
North Carolina's got a bad defense. Wake Forest is worse. And Wake Forest's offense, number 8 in the country in SP Plus. So again, it's not just fake. Like this is Wake Forest's really good offense against a really good defense in Clemson. This is a really bad Wake Forest defense against a really bad offense in Clemson. It's 3.5 points. I hate the hook. I'm going to go Clemson wins. I'm going to lay the points. I've been kind of, I'm not trying to back up our preseason projection. We've already lost that already. Wake Forest is not fraudulent. They're just not a team that's going to end the season with 1 loss. And so
they've beaten the teams they were supposed to based on
yes. And
they've done. Yeah.
They've beat their what do you call it? Like their neighbors,
quota?
their well, even the teams that are even with them, they've beaten them too. They've beaten the teams beneath them. They've beaten their peers. There you go. And this is the big test. This is Clemson. They've run the ACC. Clemson has. Clemson can still get to the ACC championship. So I think there's some motivation there. I'll lay the points. I like Clemson to win 31-27. And I'll run away because this game could go either way. But I'll lay the points with Clemson. Hey, that'll be a game for me to catch you. Last week, you went 6-1. I went 5-2. So a good week overall. But you put another game between us. I don't know if I'm going to catch you before season's end. Daniel, let's go to the Big Ten. This is a big one. Ohio State and Michigan State. Everything is still on the table for both of these teams. The winner of this game takes an immediate driver's seat for the Big Ten East and honestly for the college football playoff. Like if Michigan State were to go in and pull off this upset, they're sitting in the driver's seat to be in the college football playoff. They're immediately in the top 4, I believe. Ohio State does it. Same thing. They stay in the top 4. They're looking like favorites to win the Big Ten at that point. So problem is 19-point spread in Columbus, Daniel. So does Michigan State have a chance? Do you pick them straight up?
So I love that you asked about the straight up. If this was Urban Meyer team, yes, I picked Michigan
a lot
State
better
straight
chance.
up. So Jacob, this is similar in the fact that I think that, Michigan State's offense has been good, not great. Kenneth Walker has been good amidst their running game not being one of the most efficient in the country. He's still a Heisman candidate based on his production in and of itself. Peyton Thorne has been solid at quarterback, doing enough for them to win games. You think that Mel Tucker with the defense, defensive background is going to be able to do something here. But, for me, this whole game is about Ohio State. So Ohio State is trying to build the case. Obviously, they have to win to have a shot at the playoff. So that's the bottom line. They're at this point, and this is when champions turn their switch on. I think Ohio State can do that. Now, if, like I said, if this was a Urban Meyer coach team, I think they'd be, so strained and scared of losing the game that they would lose the game. Like that's how much I think. Now, I do think Ohio State's going to be very careful in this game. I don't know if they're going to take as many chances in this game. That was more like, as far as running up scores and stuff, that was more for that middle part of their schedule, I think, where they were beating up on, the Marylands and the Rutgers of the world, all those schools. I think that's kind of where I was going. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. I think Michigan State is going to come into this game and have no worries. I think they're going to be playing to win, and they're just going to go for it. So I think that Michigan State keeps it close. I have no doubts that Ohio State's winning this game because Ryan Day's the coach, and I think that he's going to find a way, and they're going to sit on a lead late. They've shown that they'll do that, against Nebraska and some other spots where I think that TreVeyon Henderson is going to have a big second half where Ohio State maybe has a 10-point lead, and they're just running them. And I think I could see Ohio State winning by 17 points, 14 to 17 points, that kind of being the sweet spot. And they feel comfortable with that win. It would go a long way because Michigan State's highly thought of, obviously. That would be a very quality win, one that Ohio State desperately needs. I don't think they're going to run away and hide from Michigan State. So give me Michigan State and the 19 points. And I'm going to go into this one hoping that Michigan State kind of keeps it loose, because I think that they can score on this Ohio State defense, score enough to keep it close.
It's funny that you mention Urban. Fox College Football had a pretty good tweet today with a graphic showing some stats. So the last time Michigan State beat Ohio State, 2015, the date was November 21st. They're playing on November 20th this year. Both games were in Columbus. In 2015, Ohio State was number 2, Michigan State number 9. This year, Ohio State number 4, Michigan State number 7. In 2015, it was 9-1 Michigan State against 10-0 Ohio State. 2021, both are 9-1. In 2015, Ohio State entered the game on a 30-game regular season win streak versus the Big Ten. In this game, Ohio State enters on a 25-game regular season win streak against the Big Ten. Urban Meyer entered the game in 2015, unbeaten in the regular season versus the Big Ten as the Ohio State head coach. And Ryan Day enters unbeaten in the season as versus the Big Ten as Ohio State's coach. So a lot of similarities. Like you said, this isn't an Urban Meyer coach team. So
didn't Ohio State win the national championship that year?
This is 15. 14, they won it.
Oh,
15 is the year Michigan State went from like nobody to the playoff.
Okay, yeah.
So Ohio State is not that team. I think they're going to cover. So I thought last Saturday could have been statement Saturday, in that, like, okay, Ohio State and Oklahoma and Alabama are all like, it's playoff time, right? Well, 2 of the 3 things happened. Now, Alabama played New Mexico State, but I'll get to Alabama because we're going to pick their game in a second. But Ohio State, I think a lot can be said about teams when they come out of the bye, how they look, especially teams of their caliber. And they just took them to the woodshed last week. And I think Ohio State has turned on, they've turned on the Death Star. Like, it's time to make the run. When the offense is playing like this, it gives me a lot of confidence in our preseason national champion for Ohio State. It gives me a lot of confidence that they'll at least get to the stage, which means winning the rest of the regular season games, getting to the playoff to have a chance. But I think it's one of those games that looks close early. Michigan State might even have a lead. To quote you, they might even have a lead.
Hit the button. Yeah.
I think this is the second half where Ohio State just ends up pulling away and putting this game away like good teams do. And they win this game like 42-21. So right at that 3 touchdown mark is where I think it is. And I think that's a really impressive win because this is a really good Michigan State team. I think for a lot of the year we've played around with, is no one good? Maybe everyone's just closer together. Michigan State's a really good football team, and a big win over them would say a lot about Ohio State, where even if Oregon wins, you might see Ohio State move above Oregon, considering where Michigan State's sitting above Michigan right now. So the precedent has been set. I expect a big win from Ohio State on Saturday.
One thing I wanted to clarify, you and I always talk about the whole Urban Meyer thing with Ohio State. I think it's funny because he definitely like I think he raised the floor and the ceiling at the same time of the program, but that sounds weird because they're already such a historic program. But um, going from Tressel, I felt like they didn't have a killer instinct, and Urban brought that and like the recruiting and all that. And I remember thinking that first year when they were on probation and they went undefeated, that team would have won a national championship with Braxton Miller at quarterback.
Oh
And
yeah,
every year after, like you were just talking about that 30 game streak that they had, that's something. I mean, he did that, but it was it was during those runs where you're like, they are unstoppable. And then they would lose to Purdue or lose to somebody. And it just didn't make any sense. It just was a complete throwaway game. And we just haven't seen that from Ryan Day. Ryan Day has beaten those teams he's supposed to. So it's, not to always, I feel like I always disparage Urban Meyer, who is not a good person, but a phenomenal coach. Wanted to clarify that for folks who hadn't followed along from the jump.
He always had a clunker. Like always had the Iowa Purdue games, the Michigan State game. Like there was always one of those in Ohio State every year, which with Ryan Day, there's not been one of those in Ohio State. Like in the Oregon game, I wouldn't count as one of those because Oregon was highly ranked. They were a top 10 team when they came into Columbus and won. So I digress. Big 12, Oklahoma, Iowa State. Oklahoma coming off of their first loss of the season to Baylor. They are a 4-point favorite against Iowa State in Norman. Daniel, where are you going? Sooners or Cyclones?
I think that last week was more or less the look ahead for Oklahoma. I think they were looking ahead to this game a little bit and played down and, ends up biting them in the butt against the good, great Baylor team that has played. Baylor was just ready for them last week. So this week playing Iowa State, I think it's somewhat of a get right game. I don't think that Oklahoma has the switch in them this year to where they can just dominate somebody.
Agreed.
But I do think that they are good enough that if they're doing what they need to do, they have enough talent where they can just go win by. I mean, we're talking about if they win by a touchdown, they're good. Yep. I think that that's something that they can definitely do, especially when I just don't think that Iowa State can match them scoring. And I know that Oklahoma hasn't been as good this year as far as, scoring and everything like that. I also think that there's some outside distractions for Oklahoma with the whole Lincoln and LSU, stuff that he might want to, just put it on somebody. I don't necessarily think that Iowa State's the team that they can beat up and, run away and hide from. Like, we've talked about with some other teams. I think this one, you're looking at like a 7 to 10 point victory for Oklahoma. And I think that they feel like they're in control for most of this game. So I think that they might lead for the entire game, but they might just kind of get ahead and stay ahead the whole game and just kind of hold serve. So give me Oklahoma lay the 4.
I'm with you. I think Oklahoma's a touchdown better than Iowa State. I do think it's a high scoring game. Oklahoma's pass defense has been poor this year, and Iowa State has had a super efficient passing offense. It's their run offense that actually hasn't been that good for Iowa State. So I think Iowa State's going to put up some points this week. I think I'm with you on the whole narrative of Lincoln potentially going to LSU, being a name, and like him kind of shutting down the rumors by going and putting it on somebody. And that means scoring points for Lincoln. So I like Oklahoma to win this game, like 42 to 35, somewhere in that range, high scoring game. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think Oklahoma can blow anybody out. I don't think they have that kill switch this year, but 4 points is all they got to win by at home. They can win by a touchdown and cover that spread. I'll lay the points there. I'll lay the 4. Oklahoma wins by a touchdown.
What's funny is that kill switch this year for them would have just been them continuing to have an elite offense. And they've stepped up the defensive side. And I think you're talking about the struggling on pass defense, but as a whole, defensive numbers have continued to be better. And if they would have just had their regular rinse and repeat elite offense, they'd probably be crushing folks right now.
And with their pace of offense, if you're not scoring, those short drives time-wise are even shorter. And so you're not giving your defense, you have to play complementary football. Like if you're going to have quick drives, score. That way the pressure is not on your defense to stop them every single time. Which that pressure has been on the defense for Oklahoma this year because they've been in a lot of close games. So that's a great point. Let's go to the SEC 3:30 on CBS. We've got Alabama and Arkansas. Alabama, of course, ranked number 2 in the college football playoff rankings. Arkansas ranked number 21 this past week. Alabama is still very much alive in the college football playoff hopes. And, they're number 2 right now. They've got a chance to win out. They're for sure in if they win out. They'll have a shot at number 1. They win that game. They're for sure in the playoff. So Alabama at home. Arkansas comes to town. The best Arkansas team they've seen probably since, the days of, what was that quarterback's name? Ryan
Mallett.
Ryan Mallett. There you go. Probably the best Arkansas team since those Ryan Mallett teams. There's a throwback. You remember when those games were like for the SEC West, the Arkansas-Bama game?
Well, 2011 was that year where you had 3 SEC West teams in the top 4. So heading into Thanksgiving weekend.
Yep.
So that was just bananas. And so obviously, of course, that leads to LSU and Bama rematching for the national championship, which
was a playoff.
Was perfect. Was perfect. So
Bama 20.5 point spread.
Bobby Petrino got in an accident and then was never the same. Looked hilarious in a neck brace, but I digress.
Very good.
Neck braces are hilarious just in general, but that's a side note. So this game, I tried to look at a parallel. So Arkansas playing against Bama, I really like the Florida comparison to early in the year. Because of the run blocking, offensively we're talking about, because of the run blocking of the offensive line and the running ability of the quarterback alongside a few backs that can get it done. They also have the overtop ability with Treylon Burks on the outside with Arkansas. So I think that they do enough there where they're going to give Bama some trouble because we've seen Bama struggle setting the edge, stopping the run on a consistent basis. If a team is up for blocking and Arkansas is finally getting healthy along that whole offensive line, they're able to start moving people. I do think that they're going to have a decent day running the ball, and that sets everything up for Arkansas. Now, defensively, I think that Arkansas can kind of play in space with their linebacker, their 3, great linebackers that they have and make a lot of tackles and things like that. But I also think that Bama is going to have their day offensively. Overall, I think they're going to be able to move the ball and score. Looking at this game, I just feel like I think Arkansas is going to be close. I think Alabama wins it because they have to. Arkansas still there. It's similar to the Michigan State with Ohio State. Arkansas is playing with house money. They're not supposed to do anything else. They're already clinched the bowl game. There's no pressure on them to do anything other than show up. And so they'll run through a brick wall for Sam Pittman. So I absolutely think that they're going to have an edge based on that. I think they're going to be tough on the lines of scrimmage for Alabama to do something with. And I think it's going to be more of like a pest. Alabama's going to be able to handle it, but they're not going to look pretty doing it. They're not going to look as efficient and perfect as they normally can. It's not going to be like a machine-like takedown of Arkansas. And I think Arkansas keeps it close. And I draw similarities to that Florida game. The difference, Florida obviously was much more confident at the beginning of the year than they are now. But at the beginning of the year, and Florida was at home, the difference being at Bryant-Denny Stadium for Alabama is going to be that they'll win this game by 10, 14 points. But the 20.5 point spread, I think it's too rich. I think that give me Arkansas on those 20.5 points.
I'm with you, which makes me think Bama's going to cover the spread. It's the whole game day thing when they all pick the team to win. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh boy.
Well,
Like
Kirk always ends up changing it at the last minute. He's like, I don't want that graphic at the end.
no bulletin board material.
Kirk's safe whether he gets the pick right or not. He's good.
This is a lot of points. And typically the past few seasons, especially, it's just been like, hey, you know what a safe bet is? You just pick Bama to cover the spread, and you're going to be right like 70% of the time. So
it's easy money right there.
Easy money. I'm right along the same lines as you of like Arkansas is going to play with nothing to lose. I don't think Arkansas has a chance to win this game, but they have a big chance to keep this close. And that's going to mean a lot to show like progress, the boosters at Arkansas, and like they're like, hey, the gap is closing between Arkansas and Alabama. That's what they can show in this game. It's at Alabama. Like you mentioned it, like Arkansas has like they play physical football. And that's where this Alabama team is not as physical as last year's Alabama team. Like this Alabama offense is not as explosive as last year's Alabama offense. So once you get outside of that, this game could be competitive, at least for a half. And if they're competitive at least for a half, then you got to work a whole half to cover a 3-touchdown spread. Like it's a lot of points. A win is a win right now for Alabama. You don't need style points against Arkansas. Like you got the Iron Bowl coming up. You went out and you were in. You don't have to worry about style points.
Yeah. You're not and Arkansas, like you said, is a good enough opponent where
they're a ranked
the
team.
W counts. Like that alone
whether it's
is
by
good.
1, 3, 40,
14,
it doesn't matter. So I think Alabama wins this game 41-24. So that's still a blowout. Like that's a 17-point win at home against a ranked opponent. That's a huge win. 20.5 is just a lot of points. So I think this game could be 20-17 at halftime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then Bama does come out and just third quarter, they're just too much for you. Like they overwhelm you. They like beat you down. I think Arkansas's defense is built like better for a team like Alabama that's going to spread you out. Barry Odom has shown that. And so I think they keep this close. I still think Bama wins. Again, 17's a big win. I think they win by a good amount in the end. I just don't think they cover by the end of this game. Let's go to Cincinnati. Cincinnati trying to still fight for a playoff spot. They got SMU this week. This game was a lot more hype before SMU took the loss to Houston. Did they lose one more?
No. Wait.
Oh, I'm looking now. But
gosh, who did they play
Cincinnati
last week?
Is an 11.5-point favorite. And Memphis beat them last week. That's right. So they've lost 2 in a row. But hey, Cincy, 11.5. Excuse me, they beat UCF, but they lost. They did lose back-to-back games to Houston and Memphis, and they beat UCF last week. Daniel, historically, this is a Daniel gets to pick his pony spot. So, are you riding your ponies against Cincinnati?
Yeah, it's about riding the right ponies. All right, and I think Ulysses Bentley the fourth is the right pony. I think that the running game is going to help SMU keep this close. I don't think I trust Cincinnati to run away and hide from an explosive team offensively like SMU. I do think that Cincinnati is going to put up points because SMU's defense likes to give up the explosive plays. They like for these games to be very interesting offensively. So I think that a lot of scores are going to be traded back and forth. And both of these offenses are balanced. So you're not just, a lot of times when people talk about explosive offenses, they're like, oh, it's just, a big passing game or whatever the case may be. But both of these running games are explosive. You get more Tanner Mordecai versus Desmond Ritter as far as, quarterbacks go. I do think that you're just going to see a bunch of big plays. And so if it's a scoring match, 11.5 points, I mean, I'm just going to take the points. That's basically where I'm at with it. I think that Cincinnati wins because they're desperate to win. They need the win so that they can continue to chase this dream. And this game specifically, because SMU, even for what, I think SMU's name carries more weight than some of the teams they've played. It carry more weight if SMU was undefeated or had one loss. but it at least has some noticeable players. People talk about Sonny Dykes, and him being a head coaching candidate at some of these other places like TCU and all this. So they've got some name value, some brand value. So this win does matter. But yeah, no, I don't think they're good enough to beat SMU by 2 touchdowns. That's basically what this line is saying. So give me SMU, because SMU, even at the end, we've seen them have backdoor covers because they score late on somebody. They'll just do it. So give me SMU. Give me the 11.5.
We said it in the recap episode this past week that at this point in the season, it was a mistake on my part to not trust what I had seen. Like this is week 12. This isn't week 3 or 4. We're still trying to figure teams out. And my mistake was on Oklahoma, where I'm like, this is the game that finally clicks for Oklahoma. Like,
right.
If it's having to click by week 11, like, it's lucky. You know what I mean? Like that's not the team we watched this year. That was on me. Not again. Cincinnati has not been blowing teams out, and teams that they should blow out. Like USF, I mean, Florida, I think, played 4 quarterbacks in that game, like at USF, because they were winning by so much. And that was this year's Florida team. Like, since he goes in there and struggles for a half before pulling away, they should have lost to Tulsa. That was one of the dumbest endings of all time. Like, Tulane had a lead like later in the game before they pulled away, and the score didn't indicate how close that game was. Navy, the only one by a touchdown. So 11.5 is just too many points for Cincinnati. I'm with you. I think they win, but I would not be shocked if they lose this game either. I think they win because they have to. Like you said, they have to get to the playoff. I think it's lower scoring, actually. I like Cincy to win 31-24, so by a touchdown, but they're not blowing SMU out. I think there's a chance this game goes to a shootout and like goes way higher than that in the score. And if it goes to a shootout, I actually like SMU to win straight up. I think Cincinnati's defense
It'd be awesome.
is good enough to keep them in this game. I mean, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, though. With the way Cincinnati's playing, I do think they lose before the end of the season, which knocks them out of the
I'll wear
playoff.
my SMU shirt on the recap show if SMU
they win?
pulls it out. Yeah.
Or we're both taking the points, so it wouldn't hurt if they won straight up. So.
I'm gonna cut the sleeves off too. Just
perfect.
Yeah.
Go Ponies. Daniel, let's go to the Big Ten. Guess who's back? Wisconsin is back. And after starting 1-3, they've won 6 in a row. So this defense has quietly been the second best defense in the country. The offense is coming around. I mean, they scored some points last week. So now they're up against Nebraska, who's keeping Scott Frost. They're 9.5-point favorites in Wisconsin. So they're at home, 9.5-point favorites, Daniel.
Yeah. Does Wisconsin not just remind you of like the Big Ten version of Clemson right now? Like, they've got a great defense. Offense is somewhat coming around. They're better than you really have probably given them credit for because of those early blunders, and just kind of going and forgetting about them and maybe feeling like their chances are gone, and then realizing, oh, hey, the rest of the field kind of corrected and lost some games. And now all of a sudden they're sitting in, somewhat of a prominent spot. Nebraska, bless their heart. They just, they're 3-7. I mean, probably should be around 5-5 based on, some of the, just some of the games that they've played that, and the way they've gone down. I don't trust Scott Frost in a game like this. And I think that Nebraska's played well against some of these better teams, but Wisconsin's defense, I think, is just going to smother. Like, forget the fact that I feel like Nebraska on offense is limited because they don't have their skill position is just like their skill players are just lacking. I mean, Adrian Martinez obviously is their leading passer, but he's also their leading rusher. And I just don't think that one guy can beat them. Like, I think that Wisconsin's great at, I mean, every great defense does this where they take what you do best away, or they make you play basically, they basically make you play left-handed. If they do that in Nebraska, they don't have a left hand. They're already playing with one arm. So, like, I think they could shut out Nebraska. Like this might be a game where we look back and say, yeesh. Now, I don't think that Wisconsin's going to be, as prolific as they have been the past couple weeks on offense, especially with one of their top backs getting hurt and out for the year. They still have a stable of dudes. I do think that they win this game. I think they cover 9.5 points. I think Wisconsin wins by at least 2 touchdowns. And if I'm calling my shot with the shutout, let's say it's 21-0, but even if they score, I think that they have enough in the tank to beat them by at least 10. So lay those 9.5 points. Give me the Badgers, and they're at home.
I think Nebraska can score. Like, here's why. Number one, their offense has shown promise at times. Like, I do think you run the risk of Wisconsin taking away like one thing and making you one-dimensional. Like they're a really good defense. I think they're going to play hard for Scott Frost the rest of the way. And this is a team where, like, I think of all their losses, they've lost by 9 points or less. And so, like, and this point spread's 9.5. I do think Wisconsin covers. So I do have Wisconsin 34-20 in this game. Put it right at 2 touchdowns. So I think it's a little bit higher scoring, but I just think Wisconsin's defense is too much. And Nebraska doesn't have enough on defense to stop Wisconsin from scoring 30, especially the way they've been playing on offense the past few weeks. So I like Wisconsin to win. I like Wisconsin to cover. Daniel, last game we got Oregon and Utah. This game at Utah. Oregon, of course, ranked 3rd in the college football playoff rankings. Utah favored by 3. So, I mean, is this a WTF game, Daniel?
I do not think it's a WTF game. I think that, okay, so we've seen this a few times this year where a top 10 team is the underdog to either an unranked team or a team ranked, like much, much further back than them. Utah obviously changed quarterbacks after a few games this year and has been a different team somewhat since was Cam Rising's their quarterback. So since they made the change, part of me just doesn't like this. Like, me and you have talked about Utah being kind of in the way of Oregon and their chances of the playoff, whether it be this game or a rematch in the championship, the Pac-12 championship. I absolutely am on that. I think that that's absolutely a possibility. Utah has been one of those teams where even in years that, they might be in a down year for Utah, they just, Whittingham just has his team ready to play. They're just a tough out no matter what. So that being said, I think it's way too trendy right now to pick Utah. So this is almost, we've talked about mostly last year, the chaos principle. All right. Chaos principle usually only applies to just a weird game where a team, I haven't played it for a top 3 team winning a game that technically they probably should. But I'm going to play it. I think that Utah should win this game, but I'm going to play the chaos principle and say Oregon wins, and it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really make sense. The game is going to play out weird. Oregon gets 3 points, so I'm happy to take those 3 points. But Oregon finds a way to win this game, straight up. They're going to go, I think they're going to win by maybe even 2 touchdowns in this game. That's how much I really feel like this line stinks. And the whole week I've just been thinking, oh yeah, Utah's going to beat Oregon this week. And then as I get here, I feel like everybody's on that side, and it just makes me so nervous. So chaos principle, Oregon, straight up, but give me the 3 points.
Wow. Did you change this since we started?
Today? No.
Oh, okay. I was like, I really thought you were going to. So, yeah, I've been on this side of the pick all year when the unranked or lower ranked team is favored, like Vegas knows. And Vegas knows that Utah's a better football team, and they've been playing like a better football team all year. they've just had harder opponents to play. Again, they lost some games early with a different quarterback. Oregon finally put a team away last week, and they won by 2 touchdowns, which was, I mean, it's a happy surprise if you're an Oregon fan. Before that, they're struggling to put teams away, and I'm like, you're begging to lose at this point. Danielle will tell you, public money is on Oregon, 67%. I was curious.
Well, I don't listen to public people. I'm listening to a bunch of sharps all week, so that's definitely what's going on.
I'm taking Utah. I'm laying the point. I think they win, and I think they win by 4. So I like Utah to win 28-24. Look, Utah on offense, like they rank second in the country in EPA per rush. Like they're a super efficient rushing offense. And like they score when they get the ball. So, Parker, again, we haven't dropped the episode yet. It's coming.
One day.
Our advanced stats review, he has a stat, his echo rate, and it's how often your offense either gets a first down and you're like across the opponent's 40 or scores before they even get to that point, right? Utah is second in the country at 73% of the time that happens. So like they have an incredibly efficient offense. Obviously, they have like a very hard-nosed defense. It's hard to score on them. They're a very balanced football team. They're at home. Utah's a pretty tough place to play. Oregon's been begging to lose another game. Like, this is the week it happens. They get their second loss, and Oregon is probably out of the playoff with 2 losses. So
I definitely think that between this game and the championship, they go 1-1. So if you're picking the win now, then you're thinking Oregon's going to win the Pac-12 again.
I think they lose both.
But for me, it's like I think Oregon wins this game, and then I think Utah would win the Pac-12 at that point. So I definitely think they lose one of them. It just feels slimy to me. So yeah, we'll see.
Listen to this too, money line wise. Utah, you're laying 160, and Oregon's plus 140. Like Vegas, this opened at -3, and they have not touched it. They have just let it be. So I don't know, man. I'm liking Utah. I like them to beat Oregon this week. And again, there's my upset special. And I think the top 4 of the playoff rankings could match our extra point rankings. We're just a week early with best 4 teams. And this is the thing. Is them putting Michigan over Michigan State ridiculous? 100% is ridiculous. Like especially when they did it 10 days after they play, they're saying, I don't know, man, look at the stats. I'm like, watch the dang game. Now it's all going to work itself out in the end.
And the way they worded it, they just are like
they dug themselves in a hole.
Foot and mouth. It's like, will you guys just stop talking if that's the case?
Just put the rankings out and shut up. You're making it worse. Yeah. If Oregon goes down, you could have, again, I think so far every year, almost every year, like they've gotten the 4 teams right. But I think they've gotten the best 4 teams every year. I definitely think they got the most deserving 4 teams every year. And most years they got the best 4 teams. So it's going to work out. Be patient, everyone. It'll all work out in the end. We might have the first 2-loss team in. You want parity? We might get it this year in the playoff. We'll see. But you can follow him on Twitter at Deep South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Carnes with a K. And that will do it for this edition of The Extra Point. He is Daniel. I am Jacob.